That's the closest I've seen to like world peace is when 2016 when that came out.
The closest thing to world peace in 2016, it accomplished what Michelle Obama tried to do for 8 years, just get kids out to go exercise. Pokemon Go did it in one weekend.
I seriously, I don't know that I've ever had more steps in my life than that first week.
Yeah. That was beautiful.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Top Podcast. I'm your host, Rob, and joined with me is Mike.
Hey.
We usually have another co-host, Lucian, but he's currently stuck in his bathroom waiting for maintenance to let him out. So we have a very special guest this week. You could have heard him on the past podcast. He goes by I call him, I should say, because, he's my friend. I call him Trainer Cantwell. Cantwell hails from one of the most outspoken states in the country, Texas. While born a Cowboys fan, he has been adopted into the Bills Mafia. I first met him at the University of Tulsa, and we became good friends. During one of the intramural softball games, he decided that he was too manly to use a glove and tried to catch a popped fly with his face. Several stitches and some time later, one of the women who initially ran out onto the field to check on him became his wife. He is close to having a completed living Pokedex and is the biggest Pokemon trading card game collector I know. Lastly, because he was an equipment manager for the University of Tulsa's football team, I believe he is the best man we can ask this question. What did you think of Deflategate, and did the ball pressure make a difference?
Oh gosh, wow. Didn't know I was going to have to talk about balls this early in the podcast.
Especially without Lucin here to say penis.
I know. Okay, so the pressure does make a difference. So I worked with the running backs for 3 years, specifically as the position group, and then quarterbacks for my final senior year. And the pressure and texture and grip of the ball makes a massive difference. Even if it's just slightly down, that ball can fly and you can grip it better. If not, if it's overinflated, that ball is a rock, it hurts, and you are more prone to drop that sucker. So yes, the pressure does make a difference.
Okay.
Good to know.
See, I like all of this because my opinion has always been I hate Tom Brady, but I really don't think they'd have lost that game anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But
you should also
anything to pile on, so I'm on board.
You should see what the kickers do to some of their balls too. So those kickers will run it through a parking lot and just have the crappiest, dirtiest ball without any laces. And they'll kick that in attempts for them to fumble the ball and just not field it cleanly.
I learned a lot of things about footballs with Cantwell. When I was with him a couple weekends ago in Tulsa, I didn't know the NFL had like a very specific football that they have to use and like why they use this specific football. It was just very interesting.
The Duke.
I have heard that name before, and I assumed it was just like I've always just kind of assumed it had like a standard, but I have no idea why.
Cantwell told me is like the reason they don't have white on the ball is so it won't look as wobbly if they have a bad throw. And the laces are, you said leather, right? They're
It's not like a not sticky, but more of like a plasticky feel.
Mm-hmm.
So the younger kids can get like a better grip during college, but the leather, oh man, I can't even grip an NFL football.
You got to deflate it a little bit, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I got to beat Tom Brady out there.
This week, we're talking about our top 5 favorite Pokemon games, and that includes third-party games like Pokemon Gale of Darkness, and then we're allowing some ROM hacks in there, too, if you played any fan-made games. But I just want to know, what was your guys' like journey in Pokemon? Like, what got you started in Pokemon? What age were you that you got into this this gaming, what's the word, phenomenon, as when it first came out?
So I was in 2nd grade. My granny had purchased me a Game Boy Color. It was like this nice teal blue color. And we had the Pixar game Toy Story for the Game Boy. It was a wonderful game. I could never beat it. I loaned it out to my best friend and neighbor, Trevor, and he took it to soccer practice and lost it at soccer practice. Ooh. So as a way of saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I messed up, he gave me something far greater in return. He gave me a Pokemon Edition Game Boy Color. That was the one with the little Pokemons on there, the little Pokeball.
You still have that?
I still have it. I'm missing the battery cover off the back. I have no idea where that is. Then he gave me red, crystal, and yellow.
Oh my goodness.
So that was my introduction, and I was hooked. Oh,
It
it
might
was
be
bad.
the best deal you've ever made in your life.
I know. I'm so glad he lost that game.
How about you,
So
Mike?
that was my introduction.
Yeah, so my father is a pastor, and the church at that time was like freaking so stupid about Pokemon. So they were like, "There's evolution in it. None of the kids can play it." So my parents were all like, "No, you can't play Pokemon." And I was just like, "This is dumb." Like I was a child of above average child intelligence, and I was like, but I wasn't like brilliant. I was like, I could still tell like this is the stupidest rule I've ever been given. So naturally I just went to a friend's house to play it, and I'd have told this story on the totally fictional breaking the rules episode, but it actually happened, so I wanted to save it for this episode. My buddy who had the trading card game for Game Boy Color, and we played that a bunch, and I was just enthralled. Just, the same story everybody else has. The artwork was super cool. The gameplay was pretty fun. It was just, it's this magical world. Then he got blue, or maybe he got red, because my first game was blue. So he probably got red, and I was so confused when he pulled it out. I was like, wait, how do you evolve your Charmander every battle if you don't have cards? Like, this makes no sense to me. And then, yeah, he had the regular game. We played that, and I was just like, I need to get my hands on this. And I don't remember the conversation, but I had to have admitted, like, hey, I've been playing these games, and somehow I was able to talk my mom out of this, like, evolution is bad thing, because I know that was a thing, and I know I didn't get in trouble. And then at some point, I was able to buy a copy of Blue, but I have no recollection as to how I got from one to the other. And yeah, from there, it was just, I was sold. And I remember the first time I was playing, and one of my friends had Crystal, and I was still playing Blue. And he was like, yeah, once you beat this game, you can go back to the first game. I was like, you're so full of shit. You're just making stuff up. And then he showed me, and I was just like, games can do that? And yeah, that blew my mind on a level rarely reached.
Mine was kind of the same. My mom was also part of that movement. And then it wasn't until I think it was one of my birthdays or some reason we went out to this like arcade place in Metro Detroit with some family friends. And do you guys remember those lighthouses that like had the spinning like roulette wheel, and you had the hit the button to stop it and go up or down depending on what number it landed on?
Familiar with the idea.
Yeah, so it's like one of those, and they always had like the big prizes in it because no one ever wins. And I decided I'm going to go. They had this Game Boy Advanced with Pokemon Crystal in there. And I already had a Game Boy, but like I said, wasn't all that Pokemon. So I'm like, if I get this, she obviously can't take it away from me. So I'm start going for it. And Mom's like, you're not gonna win this. So goes, walks away to go talk to her adult friends, which honestly probably more fun than watching a kid pressing a button, hoping to get, lucky. But like 5 minutes later, I come screaming over like, I won, I got it. And I end up getting the Pokemon Crystal Game Boy Advance package. And sure enough, she did not take it away from me. I don't know if maybe she, by then, because that was, Crystal came out like what, 1999, 2000. So maybe the wave had kind of already passed, or, she looked it up and found out that it wasn't really preaching Darwinism or anything. But yeah, I kept it and kind of skyrocketed from there. Got all the Pokemon cards and all that. Still wish I had them, but hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, I sold my Pokemon cards for a freaking stong back in the day.
Yeah, mine were probably just given away during garage sale.
I remember just giving away a Holo Charizard, and it haunts me to this day. And an Ancient Mew. Oh god.
Oof.
I can't live that down. So that's why I'm overcompensating now for all the cards under my bed.
Mm-hmm. Going into that, my number 5 for my favorite Pokemon game, and I will admit this is purely on nostalgia, is 1999's Pokemon Snap for the Nintendo 64. I have this memory of sitting on my aunt's couch, her like sectional couch, just grinding out this game, and like I can like smell the room and everything. It has that 90s smell, probably some smoke in there and everything. But man, it like top moments came from there, and just taking Pokemon. Then you find out like, oh, if I throw an apple at this egg and it falls in, a Pokemon will come out of it, and just like there's a surprisingly a good amount of depth to it that I didn't expect as a kid. And while I haven't went back and played it, I still have like those fond memories. And my wife bought the new Pokemon Snap. I still have yet to play it. And I'm kind of scared too, because I'm like, I just have this memory and it's so good and I don't want to like tarnish it, but it's a sequel. So I'm sure at one time when I'm snowed in here that I'll boot it up and try it out.
Little did Rob know that he was in fact snowed in later that week.
There you go.
It's worth a play. I have it. I spent a good 20-something hours on it. It's fun if you just like to watch the animations of the Pokemon and trigger those special secret, like hidden animation things and abilities.
I've never played it myself. My boss, who is also the mother of our good friend Hot Kyle, apparently she just, I don't know how she ended up playing it, but Kyle told me the story where he came home, or no, he woke up and his mom had stayed up all night obsessing over this game. She was never like she didn't care about Pokemon, but somehow she fired this game up and then just grinded the entire game in just one night. Yeah, that's just always what comes to mind is my boss just in that, like, the sun has come up and I'm still playing video games fever dream mode, and then all her kids coming down and just be like, "Ah."
You should buy her the new Pokemon Snap. That's a Christmas gift.
Dude, I have considered the idea. I don't know if she has a Switch.
Oh goodness.
And I don't even know if she remembers this. I could end up giving her this and just getting like the most blank stare of all time. So I think I'm going to go ahead and save my money. Yeah, but
that's fair.
There you go.
Also, there is a simplicity to the game that I feel like anyone could pick it up, and it doesn't require any strategy. It's just you move your view and you hit the camera button.
All right. There's a YouTuber called Thab East 721 who's doing the play every N64 game challenge. And so
nice.
Yeah, and he's one of those YouTubers who, at least for me, I find him engaging when I'm awake, but he just knocks me out when I'm trying to fall asleep. So it's like I've watched most of his videos. Well, I've played most of his videos like 5 times because it just, when I need to go to sleep, it knocks me out. But he recently did Pokemon Snap. So I actually, at this point, know what a completed run kind of looks like because I got the highlights from watching him do it. So I basically played it, right?
Yeah, basically.
It counts. It counts.
Yeah, I'm a pro.
Alrighty. Number 5 for me would be a Game Boy Pokemon trading card game.
Let's go!
That game.
That is also my number 5.
Oh, heck yes. The simplicity of it, the introduction to the mechanics of the game, I love it. It's clean. I didn't play it legally. I played it on an emulator, so I apologize, Nintendo, for that. But now it is on Nintendo Switch Online, so you can play it on the Switch legally. So I've been doing that now.
Give me 10 seconds, and I'll be right back, and I'll be slightly less engaged for the rest of the podcast. What was your starter deck?
What was my starter deck? I think Charizard. I always had to have the Charizard, so I went with Charmander and Friends.
Okay, I did Charmander and Friend and Squirtle and Friends because I played that game a lot, and I also tried Bulbasaur and Friends like once. I was like, this is stupid, and we walked away.
Well, you got to do something different for the water gym. That was tough. I think I lucked out, and he only drew one basic Pokemon, and I knocked him out so quick because he didn't have anything in his bed.
Well, the Charmander deck, I think, had a Pikachu in it, so you had some coverage.
Yes.
I ended up so there's those deck building machines often like the so basically the way the game works for 99% of everyone who hasn't played it is you basically have just a generic hub overworld map. But then there's one, basically, instead of Professor Oak's lab, you just have the random professor who has like the trading card lab. And there's a side room where you can just go and there's a bunch of pre-made decks. And I made a deck with Gyarados in it and just destroyed everything once I got that deck together. It was like the water gym. It still couldn't stop me because just Gyarados was a beast in that game.
OG.
But I will say that probably wasn't your first ever Pokemon game. No, of course it wasn't. You just told us your first 2.5. That was my first ever Pokemon game, and it destroyed my knowledge of type charts. Because like the symbol for fighting rock and ground it was all rolled into one. And then I don't know if that's how the rules worked in the real TCG, but in the game, it was like Gyarados just outright resisted ground, resisted fighting, and resisted rock, even though it's supposed to resist fighting, be immune to ground, and be weak to rock, because all 3 of those were the same. And then there were certain poison types. I don't know what it was. I swear that I just had all sorts of crazy ideas once I started playing the regular game. Like I thought Psychic was weak to Psychic, which it's not. I didn't know how the ground and rock resistance worked with electric. The whole thing was a mess. I didn't know that rock types had a purpose and that part of it was that flying types are weak to them until I was like 22 years old because of this game. But it is also a lot of fun.
Wait, you guys use rock Pokemon besides Rock Smash? I thought that's all they were good for.
No, it turns out if you like my team for over a decade was fighting type, a psychic type, an electric type, a water type, and a fire type. And I just ran 4 so that my levels were higher than if I ran 6. And then one day I learned that you could do other combinations of types and still have coverage. And it blew my mind. I was way too old not to have put it together. Yeah, my solution to psychics for the longest time was just put a fire Pokemon in there and just hit them with fire type moves, which is essentially just a terrible solution. But I was like, well, I seem to always win, even though it's a grind, so it must be good enough.
Doesn't matter as long as you get the badges, you know?
Exactly.
Did you ever cheese that game?
Describe cheese the game.
It would probably be harder on an emulator. Well, let's call a spade a spade. I was outright cheating.
Okay.
Because on the actual Game Boy, you could draw a prize card and then turn off the game and turn it back on, and the auto save would bring you right back to before you picked your prize card. And so you could check what all of your prize cards were. Or I'd is it Pokeball, where you play the card, you flip a coin, and if it comes up heads, you get to look at or you get to pick a card from your deck, but you have to shuffle.
Don't know off the top of my head, but I think so.
Yeah, there was a trainer card that let you do that. I would play those cards or just anything that let me look at my deck for any reason. And then if I just liked the order of my upcoming cards, I'd just turn the game off and turn it back on, and it would restart me at the start of my turn. But there were some fights that were just so rigged. Like there was a rival who was unbelievably strong, and there were special cards that, to my knowledge, you could only get by beating him in this one-time fight. And so I was like, I'm not playing fair. I'm doing everything in my power to come out of this fight ahead.
Yeah. There were sometimes the amount of like heads in a row on some of the coin flip. I was like, there's no way.
Insane. Yeah.
In real life, you can get 6 heads in a row. That was frustrating.
Yeah. And it always seemed like it was always stacked. Like I never got 6 heads in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the receiving end of it a lot though, which is also kind of how you can justify that. It's like, all right, the game's cheating, so I'm just going to cheat right back.
Oh, exactly.
Did you guys ever clone your Pokemon on like the first 2 generations? Because that's what that strategy reminded me of, cloning it, like cloning a Pokemon.
I'm pretty sure I beat the game before I did, but I definitely fooled around with it in Silver back in the day.
Oh, what? Only thing I did was Missing No, which we could talk about that once we get to
I think if I remember correctly, so it used to be you had the change your box. So you'd have to like save the game and everything. So you would pick what Pokemon you wanted to clone, move it to a box, and right when it said saving, you would turn off your game and turn it back on, and then you would have the Pokemon in both boxes. And that's how you would clone a Pokemon.
Yeah, so that way, and then you could also duplicate their hell item. Yep. So that was how people would cheat in Master Balls and Rare Candies. Although I'm sure you could Game Shark it too, which would have been so much easier. But I didn't have Game Shark, so.
My number 4 is also another third-party Pokemon game, and that was the 2004 release Pokemon Coliseum. I just love this game as a kid, and it really had some weird mechanics. So usually in Pokemon, for those that don't know, you can only catch wild Pokemon, so that's Pokemon other people don't have. You count them in the wild, obviously, as the name says. But in Pokemon Coliseum, there's a set amount of Pokemon you could catch. So the Pokemon would have like the Shadow Curse on them, and you could only catch Shadow Curse Pokemon. And I think it was even other trainers' Pokemon. You'd catch it from them. But
you had the Snag 'em machine.
Yeah, and it's such a unique way because like there's only a set amount. You'd have those encounters are planned out. It was hard, and I don't think I ever beat it because as a kid you end up getting like the 3 original legendary dogs, and I could never figure out there's how do you say it, Raikou? Is that how you pronounce it?
Oh, I always did, but I've heard it multiple ways.
Yeah. Disclaimer: I have dyslexia, so I'll probably mispronounce whatever Pokemon we talk about. But I'm just gonna act like it's truth. Whoever says it, that's they're speaking their truth, as the people say.
Luckily, nobody on the internet gets all up in arms about that.
True. But yeah, there was a Raikou puzzle, and I didn't have access to the internet, or I didn't, what Google was, so I never got past that part in the game. But I just loved it. I really liked the design of the main character. Kind of had like an edgy look to him. The intro started with you like blowing up a base and everything, and it was just a fun time all around.
Plus, it was all double battles, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you start with an Umbreon and an Espeon.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a cool team.
And I think there's a way, if you had the Game Boy attachment to the GameCube, which I did, you could get like a Celebi or something. There's one of the Mystic legendary Pokemons you got with it.
So completely unrelated to this podcast, I watched a video about that recently. He's probably a much more obscure YouTuber than the last. There's a guy, his name is Lyra, and he actually learned English through Pokemon content. I'm not sure where in Europe he hails from, but shout out Lyra. And Lyra literally made a website to help him on his Living Dex challenge. And he's doing them generation by generation. So he's working on a Gen 3 Living Dex. And so the annoying thing with Gen 3 was when they switched to Game Boy Advance, like the trading wasn't compatible for some reason. I don't know enough about the software and the hardware limitations. So in order to get the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 Pokemon in there, they had Leaf Green and Fire Red. And then Coliseum was part of the process. And so that's why it's so heavy on Johto Pokemon, because those are a bunch that you can't get normally. And so the way, it's such a grind. The way you get Celebi is you have to snag every single snaggable Pokemon, cleanse every single snaggable Pokemon, and then complete the 100 trainer in a row challenge.
No, thank you.
In Mount Battle, and then you unlock Celebi.
Yeah, I never got it from that, but it was, I always knew it was a possibility.
I think the worst part of that is just grinding out, getting that like the shadow bar down in order to cleanse them.
I never put 2 and 2 together. That was like their answer to the Johto. Like I just kind of accepted it was what it is and never thought about it.
I only know this because of some obscure YouTuber who's, I don't even know if he's obscure. He could have millions of subscribers and it just kind of feels homey, his channel. Yeah, I've stumbled upon the guy's channel and I've learned a ton of really cool stuff. Like Gen 2 balls are super messed up. Like the mechanics for the special balls don't work the way they're supposed to. And yeah, there's all sorts of crazy glitches to be discussed by smarter people than myself.
Did you need Pokemon box for the GameCube to store the Pokemon from there, or am I thinking of something else?
I thought box was just another edition, but it's crazy how expensive that Pokemon box copy is.
Yeah, doing a legit on original hardware Living Dex is obscene in terms of time and money if you're not cheating anything.
Praise the Lord for Pokemon Go for Living Dexes.
Yeah, how's your Living Dex going on?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Dude, I haven't sat down and tabulated it, but I'm thinking off by like 100 something currently.
That's still crazy. You're the only person I know that's like gone for it. Unless Logan has. I don't know if he's gone for Logan Dex or a Living Dex.
I need one Pokemon from Logan. I know that. He has it in his Pokemon home, so I'll have to trade for that. It's Minior or Meteor, but yeah. And then I don't even have the paid for version of Pokemon Home, so I have to put Pokemon in 30 at a time.
Dang.
I'm really curious because I was just going for a completed Dex back in the Pokemon Sun and Moon era, and I paid for Pokemon. I forget what it was called then.
Pokemon Bank.
Pokemon Bank. I paid for Pokemon Bank, and I think all my Pokemon were left there at the end of the day. And so I'm really curious if I pay for Home, can I just drag all those up from the digital depths, or are they just lost to time?
I think you should be able to. The only thing is Nintendo shut down for the 3DS and all that, and Wii U, they shut down their store. But I think they said you can still use it if you as long as you have it downloaded on your 3DS or your DS, whatever. I think it's still possible, but you wouldn't be able to go and download the software again.
I don't. That particular 3DS is kaputs.
Rip.
Yeah. Oh well.
Parental lock?
No, child break.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm still a little upset about that one.
Joe,
if you're listening, you're in trouble.
Do you have the SD card or the memory, or is it on the?
It was just on the 3DS. Now, technically speaking, the screen is just wildly messed up. So I could try and get it repaired and spend a bunch of money to get a bunch of Pokemon for a game. I don't really play that much anymore, so I'm probably just not going to end up doing that.
I was going to say, if you could get on an SD card.
We're going to start a GoFundMe.
Yeah, we'll start.
There you go.
I was going to say,
help this apathetic man get Pokemon he doesn't really want that badly.
It's a podcast with a cause.
There you go.
That's what I love about it.
We should probably worry about getting funds to, make sure Lucian has everything he needs while he's stuck in that bathroom before we worry about my Pokemon. But, I like the idea. We'll
get them next. We'll get them next.
Yeah.
My number 4 is Pokemon Yellow. Just the straight up OG Gen 1 for me. And then plus you have little Pikachu following you around with all his little emotes and happy faces and Pikas.
That's
Gen 1. Oh, great game.
That's my number 2. So you had a lot lower on the list than I did.
Number 2.
Yeah, number 2. I love that game.
Oh.
Like, I feel like if you're gonna go back and play Gen 1, that's the definitive version to play. What are you laughing at?
I accidentally left Minecraft running in the background, but it's on a server, so I didn't think about the fact that the game kept going. And so I don't know if my mic picked it up or not, but phantom screeches just started tearing through my headphones. Headphones, they started coming out my monitor because my headphones are plugged into my microphone so I can have self monitor. Yeah, so sorry about that.
You're good. But I feel like if you're going back to play like on one of the original Game Boys, not Fire Red or Leaf Green, like that's the way to do it, because you get all 3 Pokemon. You have Pikachu that follows you, and it's like as much as I love, the original ones, I do like how they incorporate kind of more of the show, like that has Jesse and James in it. And I don't know, to me it was just always so much fun, and you can get Surfing Pikachu if you play your cards right.
All right.
Oh, that's true.
Plus the front sprites are so much better. They cleaned so many of those up.
Yeah, and the moving sprites. So you don't get that until you get the 3rd generation game, or the 3rd version in those generations. So
that is true.
I don't know what else. I mean, you have to add for it being number 4. Sorry if I just hijacked your list.
No, you're fine. The only thing I would say is you still needed HM slaves for Gen 1. That's kind of tacky, having that poor whatever HM slave you use. I'm trying to think who I use.
Oddish and Lapras.
You did that to Lapras? You monster.
My God.
It wasn't my go-to water type. Like I said, I ran 4 Pokemon.
But yeah, those are your
That's
Gen
another
1
reason though that I would run 4 Pokemon, is so I could have 2 slots for slaves.
And that is one thing a lot of people have their gripes with new Pokemon games, but I love that they got rid of HMs. Like it was especially like Gen 4 just got over the top, and it was so annoying.
And then experience share.
That one, yeah.
I do not miss throwing my level 5 Magikarp out first and then throwing in my level 50.
So I thought that the way Gen 3 did it was the best, where you could equip the experience share. I think Gen 2 did it that way too. I can't stand the split team experience that they force on you now.
I don't mind it. I can understand why some people would want it off, but my time now I see as a lot more valuable, and I don't want to waste time just grinding. So I like having the quicker option.
Yeah, it's straight up a deal break for me, honestly. I don't like that's a primary reason I don't really play them anymore. Because for me, I play Pokemon for the grind. I'm a mechanics guy, and there's something I find satisfying about just going to work. Yeah, so I miss the bad old days. Yeah.
How much time did you sink into a singular game? What was like the most time that you ever did?
I had 100 hours on Leaf Green at one point.
Oh gosh.
And I ended up moving a lot of those Pokemon up through several generations. So like it's weird because like it was over 100 hours on Leaf Green, but it felt like that's still not adequate for that specific journey I went on, because it's like that same team blew through a bunch of other stuff.
I know there's one I had 150 hours on. I don't remember which one. It would have been Emerald or Y.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. It'd be cool if you could know your total playtime too, like on a cartridge. Right, because it's like I had 150 hours on that specific, or 100. Sorry, you had 150. I had 100 hours on that specific playthrough of Leaf Green, and I owned that cartridge. I still own that cartridge, but at the time I'd owned it for at least 6 years, and had played it many, many times. So it was definitely more than 100.
Okay, I had over 240 in Crystal.
Oh,
and then I washed the game in my pants.
Oh no.
So the save file got corrupt, and then I put in another 200, and then the save file got corrupt.
Dang.
But I've definitely, I think Sword and Shield, I think I have another 200. Let me check real quick.
Jeez.
Yeah, I feel bad.
I just went from thinking I was hardcore to a filthy casual.
Yeah, a lot of that is just like sitting there with your, especially Gen 1 games, sitting there with the transfer cable, hiding it under your pillow like Rob, so your mom doesn't see the glowing light.
No, I had to have a light on because I had two Game Boy Advances. I didn't have that backlight. I didn't get the SP till later.
I did that with.
For real.
I had one SP, and then I had the Game Boy Player, so I was trading from my Game Boy into a different cartridge plugged into my GameCube, projected onto the TV. It was there was no sneak in that one.
Okay, so Scarlet, I have 160. Pokemon Home, I have 10 hours played into it. That's
How did you get 10 hours? Just leave it on?
Trading, just making sure everything gets transferred over. Okay, Brilliant Diamond, I have 110. Shield, I have over 200. Yikes. Arceus, I have 85.
Oh,
Shining
it's
Pearl, I have
nothing, man. You're
30.
no commitment whatsoever
Yeah,
there.
come on. What happened there?
Pokemon Unite, I have 30 hours. Oh, gosh.
Definitely, I put probably 1,500 hours, like since a kid to now. Probably easy. I would probably take the over if someone asked me that.
That's true.
Yeah, that feels right.
Thing was, I got so there's like nothing else to do. So what I would do is I would replay the Elite Four and just try to beat them with one Pokemon, my level 100 Mewtwo, which knew Psychic, Swift, Recover, and then Thunder with PP. I used PP Max on Thunder.
There
And
you
I would
go.
just try to one-shot everything all the way to the very end. I could usually get to Lance the Dragon Trainer, and then I'd have to use Recover on repeat to get to Struggle. And then I could struggle through Lance, but then I'd have to switch Pokemon out for my rival.
Blue's a jerk.
I know, but I would just make up my own little challenges before I'd fall asleep. So that's how I got all that time into it.
Yeah, I got most of my time just trying to get Pokemon up to level 100. And I would essentially do a very similar thing where I'd slap an EXP share on somebody, and then I would just basically solo it with Mewtwo as well. But it was I wasn't worried about not using items between battles, so I just, top him off with, and then, the last battle I'd have to pull other people out. But at that point, I'd have a bunch of super high level Pokemon from grinding. So it was just like, okay, who do I want to solo Blue with?
Also, the intro to Pokemon Yellow, fantastic.
Yeah, that one's good.
It was a little different than Red and Blue, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah.
Different color schemes per town. That was another
Yes,
fun
I
one.
loved that.
Did you love
Such
the
a small
creepy
difference.
music in
Lavender Town, yes.
the dum 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 dum? Is that it?
Yep. And then there's this whole creepypasta that it drove so it was originally released
Oh my gosh.
in Japan
Oh,
before
yeah.
America. There's this like creepypasta, which is basically like a horror story someone wrote on the internet. But they said like the sound originally, for some reason, just like Japanese boys would get stuck in their head, and the only way they just couldn't get rid of it, so they ended up committing. And they say it was the creepypasta says it was originally only in red, the red version, not in the blue version. Like the pitch was different in red, and that's what caused it. And that was one of the crazy. Up there with there was another one with like silver. I don't remember what it's called, but those are like the two big Pokemon creepypastas.
All right. 4?
Yep.
Cool. My number 4 is Omega Ruby.
Ooh.
I was not the biggest Gen 3 guy. I don't like change. I don't know if I've gone on record saying that on this particular podcast, but very true fact about me is I just like stuff to stay the same. And so I played obscene amounts of blue and yellow and silver. And then somebody let me borrow a copy of Sapphire or Ruby. I think it was Sapphire. And I was just like, this is different. I don't like it. And didn't play it again until I was like 22.
Dang.
And I was like, I should really give that a shot. And I played it and I was like, yeah, you know what? It's fine. Not my favorite. I think a lot of people who love that game like it because it was their first game. It's a good one, but it's not my favorite. But then when I got that was kind of the upswing of me getting into my most intense Pokemon phase. And so at some point I ended up getting Omega Ruby, and I loved being able to fly on Latios and Latias instead of use fly. And it was like, yeah, this takes way longer, but it's just really cool. And then there were like special things you could find, or there were special things that I found specifically because I did that. I assume you could only get to them by flying around on them. But I could be wrong. I did not study that game well because I thought we were doing a top 3, and this is my top 4. So, but yeah, that was really cool. I'm not crazy about Gen 6. I don't think it was one of the better generations, but I loved the art style and the graphics. So that was really cool. It felt polished. Yeah, it was a fun way to experience a game that I was kind of whatever on. I ended up having a blast. So maybe it was because it was just so much better than X and Y.
See, I actually like X and Y.
By contrast, well, you're allowed to be wrong.
I just thought it was a very good step in the right direction for 3D Pokemon, and then it kind of been stagnant since then.
That's fair.
I know a lot of people say it's too easy, which, I don't. I play somewhat for like the battles, but I play just kind of for the whole experience of a new Pokemon game. So like to me, that wasn't as important as it's easy to Nuzlocke and all that. I've never completed a Nuzlocke and everything, so that's difficulty is not a thing for me.
That's fair. No, I mean, Gen 6 definitely isn't all bad, but it was not one of my favorites. Although Hiroki Greninja is that dude's no joke. I've always been a big fan of him.
Super Smash. He's even great on that.
Yeah, I don't know if Cantwell, if you have a Gen 3, but I kind of got sick of Gen 3, and I know that's a hot take. A lot of people love it, but I'm like, I felt like I was buying like Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire just because like it was the next game, and I'm like, I'm not really itching to go back, but I just played it so much of it as a kid that I kind of feel like I exhausted it all, and I don't really have any interest to go back. So
gotcha. No, my game experience was Red, Crystal, Yellow, and then Pokemon Go, then Sword and Shield. So I had a big gap.
Oh, wow.
Dang, I thought you played like all of them through.
Oh, no. I took a big hiatus. I dabbled in Emerald, but then I was the crazy guy who thought I could keep resetting my SP to get a shiny Rayquaza. I kept a tally. I think I got up to 200 and something resets, and then I just gave up. And so I never picked up the game and finished Emerald. And then I went Sword and Shield, Let's Go Pikachu, then what was the next one?
Brilliant Diamond.
Yeah, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and then what we're on now, Scarlet Violet. So I had a big jump.
That's crazy. Just because like you love Pokemon so much, you're like so deep into it. I just assumed that you played like all of them. So you learn something new every day.
No, yeah. For me, I feel like there's always like little gaps where you're like, life gets busy or you forget about it, and then you return to it, and then you love Pokemon even more. So that happened with me, especially with the trading card game, collecting the cards.
Yeah, it's an addiction now. It is gambling. I'm gonna say it.
It's gambling. It's legal gambling.
But my wife has the magic touch when it comes to ripping open packs. So.
Oh yes, she does.
Number 3.
I believe it's you.
All right, I was just making sure. So my number 3 is I know it's gonna be on Cantwell's list somewhere, but that is 2016's fun hit phenomena, Pokemon Go.
Oh heck yeah, my number 2.
Okay, so we just switched a little bit there, but I just think, especially when it came out, like it was like Pokemania 2.0. I would go to this, there's this city in Metro Detroit called Plymouth, and they have a really nice downtown, kind of a little more bougie end, but I would go down there.
That was the place to be, man.
Yeah, there was just people in droves just playing it. Me and my friend would just be stupid and be like, oh my gosh, there's a Moltres or something before it was like really in the game, and people would like look at us. They'd look up and then be like, you guys are stupid. But yeah, so we would just do that, and it was such a cool experience to be a part of. It felt like that's the closest I've seen to like world peace is when 2016 when that came out, and it was just so much fun going to Target at night because there's a gym battle or raids, or that's where the good Pokemon spawn, and I kind of stopped for a little bit and then started picking up again in college and got into the raids, and then I stopped again. But then when I went and back down to Tulsa and hanging out with Cantwell, we went and just like walked around catching Pokemon because it was a community day. I'm like, man, I miss this, just like going and walking around, and nowhere in North Dakota there's really nothing here, so it's kind of ruins that for me, but it's just so much fun, and I really enjoy it.
There you go.
Team Valor.
Yeah, the closest thing to world peace in 2016, it accomplished what Michelle Obama tried to do for 8 years, just get kids out to go exercise. Pokemon Go did it in one weekend.
I seriously, I don't know that I've ever had more steps in my life than that first week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was beautiful. I remember placing a lure mod in a Pokestop, and I literally counted 5 cars pull in. And this was like 9 o'clock at night that summer. And people were just sitting out there camping, catching Pokemon. That was just the craziest thing ever.
It was wild. Like I would see signs on the internet to be like, hey, if you drop a lure, we'll get you a free drink at a bar. Like it was just insane. And like our pastors would make jokes about it and like talk about it during the sermons. Like, yeah, just keep on swiping away, or keep on talking, pastor, or keep on swiping this gym and all that. And it was just, oh my gosh, it was crazy.
Hey, most churches were Pokestops or gyms, so they could have used that to leverage just to get people who normally wouldn't come to church.
Mm-hmm. They did. I know churches are out there who my dad's church, I think they made a point to be made a Pokestop, and they were advertising it.
Yeah, I know Dan, the one who's just like, yeah, come in and play Pokemon Go.
Hang out, talk with them.
I was gonna say, I just remember it came out when I was on a mission trip with that church. And I, of course, the students weren't supposed to have phones, and I was a leader. And I'm like, guys, this Pokemon Go game's great. And we were in Philadelphia, and that's where I caught like Charmander and all that. And I felt like I was rubbing it in the kids' faces that I could use a phone. But you want to know what? I have no regrets.
Amazing. The only time in my entire life I've talked to that many strangers is in the calm before the storm with COVID, where people it was before everyone who disagreed with you even slightly wanted to kill you. And when you were still when we didn't know anything, it was like, so you think there's anything to this? You just have a conversation about it with every person you met. That was kind of like Pokemon Go, except it didn't turn nasty.
Unless you're on Team Instinct.
Oh, whoa. Whoa.
Which
Fighting words.
color is Instinct?
Yellow.
Yellow.
Okay, we're good.
Were you blue?
Yeah.
Team Mystic's blue. Team Valor is red.
Team Valor. Whoop whoop. The Gryffindor.
I love how
teams.
they incorporated you could purchase the team medallion for 1,000 coins and switch your team.
Yeah.
So if you made a mistake early on, you could avenge yourself or something.
Yeah.
I was always just a huge Articuno fan.
The Articuno definitely had the best design. Team Mystic, I think, had the best design. But they gave quote unquote reasons why you would join each team, and I just aligned with Valor, even though it didn't mean anything.
Yeah, no, I just picked my favorite bird.
Yellow looked cool, and I thought everybody else was choosing red and blue, so that's why I chose it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, at first, blue was obviously the runaway by far, but then it was Valor, and then Instinct was a small minority. But I feel like nowadays I see more Instinct than anyone. I think you guys definitely had the most loyal fan base was the Team Instinctors. If you guys are on one of the teams for Pokemon Go, leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube and tell us what team you are, and 2/3 of us will tell you you're
and
wrong.
level.
And level. Drop a friend code.
And level.
We'll add you.
Oh, heck yeah. Send you some gifts. Keep it going. I'm level 42 Team Yellow.
Oh my goodness. I think I'm 34.
Funny thing is, I'm still not halfway experience point wise to level 50. If you just think about how much you have to grind in that game.
Yeah, that's old school RuneScape, but old school RuneScape. Go back and play it, and it's 92, and you would get to level 100 the max, but 92 was the halfway point. And it's oh my gosh. I told myself one summer when I was in Tulsa that I was going to get to level 99 or level. I think it is 99 or 100, whatever one. I was going to get to max level and fletching, and I think I petered out 96 or something. It's just brutal.
That's grind. It loses the only way I could maintain the dopamine cycle, even for a little bit, was if I was doing something where I was trying to upgrade an attack stat. So I'd go out and I'd kill cows, and then I'd collect the drops. And I'd run back to the big the marketplace,
Grand Exchange.
And so it was okay, cool. I'm constantly getting more money, so I can be buying cool stuff, and that was enough to supplement the dopamine to keep going. But no, that game lost me after a while.
I was also on the cow hide train when I was whenever I didn't have membership. That was a very easy low level way to get gold.
Yep. All right, Rob, my Pogo was number 2 instead of number 3 for me. Due to the increased shiny chances, you weren't grinding 1 out of, 4,200 or something.
Mm-hmm.
It felt way easier to get shinies. And I actually, believe it or not, I had on a non-community day, I had 2 random encounters of shinies back to back.
Dang.
I don't even know what the odds are of that on a non-community day, but I thought was one of the craziest statistical possibilities that I had happen for me. But increased shiny chances, and then the transferability of the Pokemon from Pokemon Go to Pokemon Home, and then into whatever mainline game that you want it to be in right now.
Yeah, I love just how accessible it made shiny, especially community days. I got a full shiny family of Charmanders and Squirtles, and
oh heck yeah.
Yeah, and I really love those early community days. And we'd have a loop on campus. We would all walk through and we'd hit that up for an hour, and we'd all just have shinies out the wazoo and candies for days.
Especially over by the library, dropping there's 6 stops all right next to each other, and you can drop lure mods in each.
Yeah, but the Pogo group on campus would always beat me to it. They were oh
yeah.
I feel like they camped up 5 minutes before and just had their finger ready just right when it hit the hour mark. They're put down this lure.
I'm ready to go. All right. My number 3 is Pokemon Legends of Arceus. And that is the correct way to pronounce it. So you're wrong if you say it any other way.
Arceus.
I'm sorry. Arceus. I apologize. You were wrong. No, they have a those pocket handbook Pokedexes
Mhm.
They had a pronunciation for Arceus in one of the books, and it was Arceus.
Well, they also say, what do they say? Rayquaza instead of Rayquaza. It's Rayquaza.
Oh gosh.
And it's GIF, not
They're
GIF.
wrong.
No matter what the person says, it's GIF. Anyways, continue.
Okay. I'm with you on that one. So Legends of Arceus was just a whole different ballgame. Just a
Pun.
totally fresh spin. Takes you to the region of Hisui, which is, what is that? The former,
Four.
that's like, Gen 4. The earlier region
Yeah.
of Gen 4. And it was just a whole new gameplay. Because you open world exploration, you didn't have to trigger a battle to catch Pokemon, which I thought was novel. You could just sneak up in the grass, use your jet ball, your gigaton ball, or whatever ball you had crafted. It adds a crafting element to the game as well. And you could catch them that way. And in your battles, it added a whole new battle technique. You could go the agile style or whatever it was, the swift style, or the
Strength.
have more power on your hit. Yes. And then, I'm a completionist when I play games. So I'm trying to get the Pokedex and everything else. But the Pokedex there, it added the element of there's certain tasks that you had to complete to get the Pokedex marker in the Pokedex there. So it may be like catch 40 light of this light Pokemon of this Pokemon, or sneak up and do some other task. So as a completionist, that element to the game made it so much fun and novel to play.
Yeah, I never beat Legends Arceus. I kind of wish I
Arceus.
did Arceus, but my wife was playing it and she kind of like took over the TV, which I'm happy to see her get. I like seeing her passionate about games she likes, so I was happy to go play on my computer or something. But I should go back. I really enjoyed it. I like what they did with the alpha Pokemon?
Yes, so there's that obscenely larger Pokemon than just like your normal type. And they'll pop up and they're red, and then they're scary because they can hit you and they can like cause you to faint. Legends Arceus was like the second game that also included a shiny Pokemon for you to catch in the adventure.
Ponytail.
So Crystal, you had Red Gyarados and Lake of Rage. And in Legend of Arceus, you had a shiny Ponyta. So that was one little fun, interesting fact. A guaranteed shiny catch.
Yeah, the farthest I ever got was I think I fought the first alpha Pokemon, and I don't know why I didn't like that game more.
That's interesting because like the alpha or the enraged Pokemon kind of had a Dark Souls vibe to me, so I would have thought you would have liked that aspect. But
yeah, no, everything. I think I think my eyes kind of played a factor. Like I felt like it was a lot harder to read what the moves were, just the way the UI was set up in battle. Like the free flow battle was really cool, but I liked the more stationary setup of the earlier games. And I feel like a different game came out around the same time, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to this. But I can't remember what it was.
yeah, I hope
It was a good game though. It was a nice change.
I hope they do it with Gen 2.
Yes.
That'd be cool.
What would they name it though?
Celebi.
Yeah.
Legends of Celebi.
All right. My number 3 is Pokemon Black and White. I was really, really annoyed when I started playing this game because there were no, I think the terminology is national dex Pokemon. Like it was only Pokemon from Gen 5 until you completed the main story. And I was like, oh, this sucks. Like where are all the other Pokemon? But very quickly I started to really enjoy I was like being forced into a fresh experience, kicking and screaming, and then being like, oh, maybe change is okay just this once. Because like I fell in love with Pokemon I ordinarily probably wouldn't have used. It made you consider and think about the way a different Pokemon interacted that I normally wouldn't have. I used Conkeldurr, and frankly, I think he was kind of trash. But I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool evolution line. I'll see how this guy works. Yeah, and it was neat. It was like playing Blue or Silver for the first time again. And yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun. I thought the story was pretty cool. I don't remember much of it now, but at the time I really enjoyed it. Oh gosh. Hydreigon Like the first time I saw High Dragon, that was mind blowing. Like that dude is so cool, and it had so much. And the post game was great, and just like I ended up loving everything about it. I put a ton of hours into it, and it's one of those games. I don't know if you guys have this. So I specifically listen to a lot of audiobooks. There are certain audiobooks that are just linked to games in my head because I played a lot of. I was playing White while I was listening to Orson Scott Card's Pathfinder series, specifically the second book in that series. And I can't start that game without thinking of that book or start that book without thinking of that game anymore. They're just irrevocably linked. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I feel like people either don't like it, but haven't played it, or love that game. And so it's definitely, if you haven't played it, it's worth checking out to see what the hype's about because it holds up.
Yeah, Gen 5 is kind of weird because when it first came out, not a lot of people liked it, and I was in that group, and I've been meaning to go back and play it because I think it's kind of the art style really turned me off. I didn't like the direction they were doing. I want to go back because a lot of people complain about the story in Pokemon or lack thereof, and like Gen 5 is when they really tried it, but then there was some backlash, and I don't think it was because of the story, but because of that backlash, they kind of veered away and went back to the more simplistic storylines. And I need to go back and play it. It's been on my list for a while because I didn't like it at first, but I think I was just kind of caught up in the hate train at the time.
No, and I think the story, like, I feel like 4, 5, and 6 all kind of had this, like, the world or the universe is in peril kind of thing.
Three
and
also
it was
had
like,
that.
3 definitely had it with the weather trio. So I think it had definitely gotten old, but for some reason 5 was the one that resonated with me. It also had that fun kind of thing where, like, I remember making fun of it in high school because you had like Pokemon PETA where they were like, you can't be making these creatures battle each other. This is horrible. But then they were full of they were just trying to get your Pokemon from you. Like that was just their scam. But then you also had the thing with the leader of that group, or I don't even know if he was the leader. It was a really complicated story. I kind of half read through the cutscenes, but like, yeah, you have N, and I think N was really actually just passionate about, coexisting peacefully with Pokemon, but then the rest of the group around him wasn't. And then there's the theories about whether N himself is a Pokemon in disguise, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think N's Room was some of the best music Pokemon has ever made.
There's that. There was also I think the post game for that game was it was just really good. It was no go explore a whole second generation, but I just kept exploring new areas and finding new secrets way after I beat the Elite Four. Like it definitely had more to do besides just grind for levels and catch Pokemon you don't have.
Mm-hmm. Did you have White or Black?
I might have had Black actually. I did have Black because I have White too, and me and Becca used to hang out and play a bunch of Pokemon together. And she had White, and then I got Black, and so I was going to get Black too, but when I went to GameStop or whatever, they only had copies of White too. So I have Black 1 and White 2, which is annoying because in the sequel they switch up the box art legendary, so you can have Black and White, or you can have Black and then Black 2 and get both box arts. But I can only get one box art because I have the wrong copies.
Hey, GameStops are selling classic games now again. So
are they really?
How are their prices?
How old are classic?
I really don't know. I just know I got an email from them because I'm a pro member for the sake of getting discounted Pokemon cards and the $5 monthly credit, which is great for my addiction. But
dude, it is. I had a digital copy of Miles Morales that came with PlayStation Plus. And I was like, I want to get I want to have a hard copy of this game. And I went in and I used Jacob. I used his numbers to get the discount. And they were like, do you want to use your monthly $5 off? And I was like, no, I'm good. Cause like, I'm not going to use his $5 coupon, and he was like, it expires in 5 minutes. Like I was coming in at the end of the night and I didn't realize it was the end of the month. And I was like, then yes.
Those are mine.
My number 2 has been taken. So Cantwell, number 2 is yours.
Well, my number 2 has been taken.
Mike, right back to you.
I get to talk twice. Okay, I'm going to use my one ROM hack per list here.
Oh, thank goodness.
My number 2 would have been Leaf Green.
Ooh.
Honestly, my 1 and 2 are a coin toss, and I've definitely played a lot more of my number 1 than my number 2, but that has more to do with when in my life I had access to them. So yeah, but anyway, my real number 2 is Ultraviolet. Which is a ROM hack of Leaf Green and Fire Red. I think specifically Fire Red, that it's mostly just quality of life and then post-game stuff. So there are some major tweaks, like when you go underground, that's been completely rehauled and there's a marketplace under there. But what you can buy there are things like stones that will let you evolve trade evolution Pokemon that you can't really do anymore, because it's like, I don't have a way of actually playing Leaf. I have a way of actually playing Leaf Green, but I don't have a way of braiding on Leaf Green anymore. You know, this solves that problem.
Sounds like you didn't have friends.
Well, it's not that. Well, no, it is that. Let's not get that wrong. I don't have friends. F you, Rob.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Wow.
But I also don't have the hardware for it. You know, like,
Ooh.
you know, it's like I don't have.
Hey, Cantwell, you want to start a podcast together?
Yeah. This guy doesn't have friends, and he just doesn't have the hardware. I don't know if he really.
What's he good for?
Uh,
An intro. That's what he's at least.
an intro, the entire idea. Yeah, but yeah, no, it's Leaf Green at its core. There's some fun stuff. Silver makes an appearance. So there's a bunch of scripted sequences where Silver shows up, which is kind of cool. But just at its core, I love Gen 1 and I love even though I really didn't like Sapphire or Ruby, I loved that graphical style. And so to be able to play my favorite generation in my favorite graphical style with those quality of life improvements, I mean, it's nothing fancy, but there it is. That's why I like that one. If I'm gonna play Leaf Green, I'd rather play it on an emulator because it's bigger and I can see it better, and I can crank the speed. That's the other thing.
Oh yes, that's so nice.
Like the first time because I really wanted to use a fossil Pokemon in a team, but it's like by the time you can restore the fossils and you get it at freaking level 5, you're gonna spend hours grinding this thing up to be useful. And I was like, no, it's all good. I got there. I just cranked it to like times 64 speed and just grinded for like 30 minutes. And I was like, great, this guy's ready to go.
Then you spend 30 seconds trying to get in the Pokestop because you don't want to take off the speed.
Yeah, right.
Missing the door.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, missing the door. The number of times I've used the wrong move because of forgetting to turn off. Like I've just been like grinding through, and then I've been like, oh, I actually have to do a different move, and then I'm like, it's self-destruct. Oops.
Electro, use explosion.
But yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes ROM hacks really awesome is you can play those older games, but get some workarounds for the mechanics that are kind of inaccessible now. Although you can play, I can't stand Nintendo's new streaming model for their old games. The way they were doing it on 3DS and Wii U was way better.
Yeah,
where you could just go out and rebuy the old titles.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like Nintendo's. There's like preserving video games. A lot of people are angry with Nintendo with how they do, but
Nintendo is the reason that I'm actually pro pirating. I'm like, look, if there is a way to buy the game, I don't want to steal it. That's, you know, but it's like, dude, Nintendo is not making these available.
No.
And I could go out and I could spend an obscene amount of money on a used copy of the game and Nintendo still wouldn't see a cent. So I'm not telling you to pirate, but if I were, it would sound a lot like this. That's all I got.
Cool.
Ta-da!
I have a feeling our number ones are going to be the same, but we'll see.
Oh, no. We'll see.
So my number one greatest Pokemon game of all time, and maybe this is going to be where it deviates, but I put Soul Silver. Which is a remake of Gen 2. Cantwell, did you have Gen 2?
I had Crystal as my number one, so
right.
Yes.
Mike, you did
That's
as well?
Close enough. Soul Silver specifically, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess we can all just kind of break into this, but Gen 2 was the first, Crystal was the first Pokemon game I played, and I just love, who doesn't love being able to go back, even when I didn't know like exactly what Johto was, going back and playing, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a whole another set of gym leaders, and I love the starters in Gen 2, I love a lot of the Pokemon they added, and the reason I picked Soul Silver and over Gen 4's remake is because I feel like that's what 2D Pokemon should be. You have a Pokemon following you, and you can interact
Love
with it.
that. Yep.
Yeah, and it's cool because they scale it. So if you have like a legendary that's supposed to be like 16 feet tall, it's just this towering Pokemon behind you running with you. And then like if you go inside it, like he doesn't move around inside because it's too big. And it just so many quality of life button like updates, like being able to run inside, not having to hold down the run button the whole time. And it is just the art style is gorgeous. And
Run wasn't even introduced until Gen 3. You only had Bike.
Yeah.
Back in Crystal. So that's really nice. I adore the second physical special split. I think it's the best thing ever to happen to Pokemon. Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like they updated Kanto a little bit because while Kanto was really fun to go back to the first time, in hindsight, it's kind of weak. I enjoyed everything about it so much more. That was also the first time I beat Red.
So was it Soul Silver?
Experience. Yeah, I never did it in Silver.
Oh, dang.
I don't think I did it when I had Crystal too. I didn't know about it. Like I never went through.
I didn't know what the type chart was when I was playing Pokemon Silver. So Red was just absolutely destroying me. I wasn't leveled up enough, and I didn't know what a fighting type move was. So Snorlax was just a total wall.
That level 88 Pikachu, right? Is it 88 or 92? I'm trying to remember.
It doesn't matter. If you know what to do with it now, it's a pushover. You roll in, you hit one Earthquake, it's done. Pikachu's base stats are trash.
And then one thing I think it was cool that Mike, you brought up in our NPC one is like you got to see what happened to Red and Blue. So the protagonists in the Gen 1, you got to see them, and it's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't talk to you. They're just there.
Blue does.
Blue talks to you, yeah.
Oh, Red doesn't. It's just a ...
Yeah, he hits you with the ellipses.
And then boom, level 88 Pikachu right in your face.
You're just like, what did I do?
In Soul Silver, that was the first time I ever that fight with Red was the first time I ever experienced a Giga Impact, and I didn't know it was just physical special split Hyper Beam. But even then, Hyper Beam is a terrifying move. But when you read Giga Impact, and then it had I loved the attack animations in Gen 4, even though I wasn't crazy about like actual Gen 4. I just like the remakes. Yeah, that was just like. That felt like one of the hardest times I've ever been hit by anything in my life.
And going back to like Gen 2 itself, I obviously it's probably nostalgia and biases and all that, but I love just the pixel art and like the movement they have in Crystal with each Pokemon. And I love the 8-bit sounds they have. There's still some Pokemon. I think there's still some Pokemon in modern Pokemon that use like the old 8-bit sounds, and I love it. It just hits that.
I love that
hit.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Cantwell, have you played Soul Silver?
I have not. No.
Okay,
I'm clueless to Soul Silver.
It's insanely expensive.
I think
it's kind of hard to get your hands on.
Yeah, those are like the second most expensive ones. I think it's Heart Gold and Soul Silver. What's up, Thor?
And then didn't it come with like a thing where you could send a Pokemon out
the
to
Pokewalker? Yeah.
And you
I never
walk
had
with it
one.
and get stuff.
I always bought it used,
I
didn't have it.
Yeah, I got my copy of Soul Silver. I'm telling you right now, if you had played it, it would be your number one instead of Crystal.
Oh, okay.
It is so faithful and then just expands. Like it's the same thing, just better. I bought my copy of it's exactly what you want out of a remake. They nailed it. I bought my copy of Dodge from Chili's.
What's up, Dodge?
Shout out Dodge. And it was this moment where I was like, man, I really want to play Soul Silver. And it's like, I think I have a copy of that. That's worth kind of a lot. And I was like, yeah, but it's a real hassle to have to sell it, you know? Mm-hmm. And he was like, all right, let's find a middle ground. So I think I gave him like $60 for it. And so he didn't have to deal with selling it. And I didn't have to go drop like $100 on a new copy at the time.
Beautiful.
There was a couple times I had that. I ran that racket as a kid where someone would be like, I'd be like, I want to get this game. And they'd be like, oh, I need to sell that game. And I was like, I would literally call GameStop and be like, how much will you give me for this? Because they would just look it up and tell you what the trade-in value was.
$1.
And then I'd be like, how much is it new? Or not new. How much do you like? How much is it? Like, how much do you sell it for? And then I would just split the difference and buy it off kids.
There you go.
And it was like, dude, I was undercutting GameStop all over the place back in the day. By which I mean I acquired Lego Star Wars for Game Boy Advance, and then nobody else wanted to do the deal for some reason. But that one time,
that's not like a bad, like that's a good deal though. If you're getting more than
it was brilliant.
Granted, you're probably kids. They're probably just dumb, but you know
exactly.
Which starter did you guys always do? Cyndaquil was my first Pokemon, so I love Typhlosion.
Yeah, same. Well, it wasn't my first Pokemon, but I think the first time I did Totodile because I was I started as a Squirtle guy because I had blue, and so I was like, gotta get the box art Pokemon, and so I just rolled blue again, or blue. I rolled water again, but ever since it's been Typhlosion all the way.
In that original, I don't know if 8 or 16, but that original sprite for Quilava is one of my favorite second evolutions.
It's so good. Oh, right, Quilava. Yeah, no, that is a really good one. It's not too in between awkward like a lot of them are.
Yeah, I think Feraligatr is also a great Pokemon. The 3D, I think 3D kind of did Feraligatr dirty, but I like the 2D sprites were just beautiful.
He loses some of his rough around the edges from 2D sprites, and it hurt him. Like, I wish he had been just more rough and like in his appearance when he went 3D. The other crazy thing I remember from Gen 2, absolute heartbreak, was the Blaine fight when you get into Kanto. He was pretty tough, I remember. And I got him down to, I could tell, I was like, it's his last Pokemon. It was his Arcanine. And he's on red health. Like, he's got a sliver. And I was like, I got Quick Attack, baby.
Did he Quick Attack you?
No, I didn't know what extreme speed was until that day. I've never gotten over the trauma. I literally, I've never rage quit harder in my life than when I learned there was a move that out prioritized Quick Attack. That, yeah, I'm still really upset about it. Actually, I don't address it.
Oh, nuts. Oh, man. Well, Gen 2, the great thing about it is it introduced shinies. It introduced so many of those YouTube videos that I get as well that show up shiny hunting level 100 Magikarp or shiny hunting this. So that was crazy. My first ever shiny Pokemon was a Sentret. Even though it was lame, I was like, wait a second. Why are there sparkles and stars around this animation? What is happening? And I caught it, and I had that purpley pink turret. That was so cool. And then just the little blue XP bar. I thought that was the coolest thing, going from red, not having any idea how much XP I needed, to like always knowing like, oh yeah, I know it's coming.
Yes.
Level 36, almost here.
Well, then I don't know if it was just Quilava, but some of them, if they didn't faint, they would evolve even earlier. So I think it was like 32 was when you'd get the third evolution if they didn't faint at all. And I think that's a really cool aspect I don't think any other generation has done.
Oh, I never knew that. Wow. And then the introduction of the roaming Pokemon.
Yeah.
I hate them.
The first time a roaming dog showed up, I was just like, whistle. Like,
so you never just carried a Haunter with Mean Look just for the heck of it?
Not back when I was a kid. I didn't know what the whole Mean Look was. I just kept on going.
Where there's a glitch that they can roar you even with Mean Look.
Oh man,
yeah, it's not cool.
That sucked. I just remember I would have a Max Repel on, and where Sudowoodo used to just hang out and use the water bottle. I would switch between those 3 routes.
Yep,
and just crack them after I first encountered them. But encountering them just took forever. So yeah, that's why Gen 2 just superior for all the just great things it introduced, and
breeding, which is what YouTube does. I mean,
No. Yep. Togepi friendship levels.
That's true.
It introduced that
day and night cycle.
Umbreon, Espeon. I was a big Espeon fan.
Yeah, there we go. Espeon Nation. Where you at? Mike, you're an Umbreon fan, aren't you?
Honestly, I'm not a huge Eevee fan in general.
Wow.
Umbreon's the dark type, right?
Yes.
Yep.
I've definitely, since learning how the game works, I'd rather have an Umbreon than an Espeon because I'd rather have other psychic types. But Umbreon's a great tank. So.
Oh, also.
He was in Gen 2.
Are we going to get through this whole thing and not talk about how freaking much of a pain Whitney was in her milk tank? My gosh. And her rollouts? Oh, I hated it.
Well, and the funny thing is, all you have to do is hop up to I forget the number of the route, but there's a route where you just go a little north really early on. You can pick up a Geodude and just wall her completely. That's another thing I didn't know as a kid, is that rock type had a purpose. So I just never did, and just got wrecked by Whitney until I got lucky.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I never hated the gym leader more than Whitney. And then she would just cry and not give you the badge. And I'm like, Come on. What are you doing?
Who are you?
And the reason I went Soul Silver over Heart Gold for me is I like Lugia better than Ho-Oh. And you just...
Same.
Makes sense. Lugia was
I
one of
also-
my first level 100 Pokemon I ever had.
Mhm.
I had Silver as a kid, but I heard, I don't know if it was true, because you know how that was back in the day. I was told that the duplication glitch only worked on Silver. It didn't work on Gold. So I was like, well, I'm not going to just cheat, but I'm going to want to play around with that afterwards.
Mhm.
And so I had to go Silver.
I know it worked on Crystal. I don't know about Gold. That's another thing that I loved about Pokemon back in the day is all those playground rumors.
Right?
It's just
Mew into the
fantastic.
truck.
Mm-hmm. Or like even in Gen 3, like can you actually get the space and get Deoxys and Jirachi? And it was wild. Wild times before we learned how to use the internet and could instantly find the correct answer.
Right.
Cantwell, do you have anything you want to shout out? We just wanted to thank you for being on the podcast. So if you have anything you want to shout out, any recommendations or whatever, now's your chance to do so.
Oh, wow. Shout out to making my morning drives from work at 6 o'clock in the morning interesting. I appreciate this podcast for that.
Oh, well, thanks. You didn't have to butter us up like that, but I appreciate it.
Oh, honestly.
You're
Hearing
already
y'all's
on
voices,
you don't.
6 a.m. while I'm opening the exam rooms at the office is always great. So I don't feel scared because it's a massive office and I feel like somebody's going to jump out and scare me, which has happened once, but we don't talk.
Jeez.
Someone trying to get their prescriptions
man.
filled.
Oh, no, there's a homeless guy in the parking lot one morning. I had to call police. I swear I saw something move this morning while I was opening up rooms. That was freaky.
Dang.
But I was listening to y'all's music recommendation. That made me feel safe and secure. Oh, man. Other shout outs. Shout out to my wife, Rachel. She actually has the pulling luck with the Pokemon trading card game. I can never pull the good cards. She can. So thank you to her. She pulled 2 Charizard cards for me. I didn't actually pull them. She pulled them. So I'm going to give the honor where honor is due.
Go Rangers, right? Go Rangers.
Oh, go Rangers. Oh, my gosh. Middle school me is going crazy right now because that was the last time they were in the World Series. And Nelly Cruz dropped that pop fly in the outfield, which we would have won. But now we have a chance to redeem ourselves with a whole new group of people.
How are the Cowboys doing?
Cowboys are the Cowboys. It's always going to be their year, but it's never going to be their year at the same time. I love the cycle. I love how much I hate them, but I also love them at the same time.
As a lifelong Lions fans, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, if I could have one wish, it would be to see them lose in another ridiculous way to the Niners in the playoff. I don't even have an issue with the Cowboys, but like I just like it's become something I enjoy so much that I'm just kind of like, ooh, yes, one more time.
That Zeke play.
Ezekiel Elliott at center was almost up there with the butt fumble. So,
dude, it was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
That was his last snap as a Cowboy.
Oh, I know.
Mike, what are we talking about next week? I believe it's your pick.
So we're gonna go with. Sorry, I've been staring at the list for the last 3 minutes trying to pick one. We're gonna go with top 5 sports media. Top 5 pieces of sports media. Yeah.
What do you mean?
So that's a great question, and I was gonna cover it anyway. Sports media would be sports talk. So if you got a podcast you like, it's fair game. Movies, video games.
Giants.
Facing the Giants.
Facing the Giants.
You're in the end zone.
Go! Anyone who actually, not ironically, picks facing the Giants is off the podcast. Yeah, so things like that. So top 5, whether it be commentators, whether it be a video game or a movie, anything but the sport itself.
Okay.
I look forward to hearing y'all at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Oh yeah, let's go.
We'd like to thank you all for listening to this episode of the Top Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review and comment, and we'll read it off on the show. Even if you don't leave a 5-star, Mike would love just to get your feedback and whatever you have on your mind. Just tell him, because he loves to hear what you guys have to say. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to have interactions with you there. Be sure to check out our other socials. Other than that, hope you guys have a great day. And remember...
See you next week, toppers.
I stand in protest.
Remember, winter is coming. Especially, we're about to get a freaking... We have a winter storm watch coming in here. We're supposed to get like a foot of snow. So that'll be interesting.
There you go. You can play Legends Arceus.
Well, I still have to...
Arceus.
Okay.